Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm making a countertop for a project. So I already milled the boards and jointed them so we have a pretty tight seam. And here we go. Okay, so here's the material laid out on these pipe clamps. This is a Izzy Swan pipe clamp, like holder kind of thing. I'll get into the detail on that in a few minutes. So we're going to use some Type On Dark, but this is my favorite little hack for doing glue ups. I have these glue silicone brushes that are available at my local dollar store that I like to use for glue ups. They are a little bit longer, and I cut the ends so that about a ½ inch sticks out. It seems to be about the perfect amount with most of my glue ups. But here, let's get started. So this is how I like to do my put my glue on. I usually build up a little bit on the ends, get a little puddle in front of the glue brush, and then just push it along and add to that puddle as I go. And it leaves pretty much the perfect amount coming down the joint and goes pretty quick. This is kind of real time, so you'll see how quickly it goes to get these 3 pieces ready to go. Okay, now we're ready to rock and roll and get these clamps all installed and get this thing starting to dry. Okay, so here we go, putting on the bow clamps just to hold everything kind of flat. I know they're dead flat, so I put them on sideways and just clamp together. They can be used the other direction too, but I find that it's a little too much clamping force for this purpose because it'll actually tighten them down too hard to make it harder for you to clamp the boards together. So this is kind of a light clamping. I'm just getting them in there, getting it tight enough so that the boards stay flat while the pipe clamps do their job. Okay, so adding another set of bow clamps to the middle here, just to keep everything flat in this middle section. The ends will be trimmed to length once they're dry, and we got a little bit of room there, so I wasn't gonna go crazy with adding more of these everywhere else. Added a couple F-styles on the ends also, just to keep the all the seams tight wherever I can. And now we can start putting the pipe clamps and getting them nice and snug. Again, I'll go back and tighten all those other clamps once everything is in place with the pipe clamps. And just because I have them, I got some of my deep reach clamps and put them on the ends just to flush up those 2 joints instead of running another set of bow clamps. I do have a bunch of sets, but I figured let's try a little something different and show a different approach. And again, another couple F-styles for the ends. And now I'll start going back and just tightening everything up, giving it one more turn, make sure all the glue squeeze out looks even everywhere. Okay, so once I did an initial kind of quick sand and getting it out of the clamps here, I noticed I had a little dent in the board in two spots. Don't know if it happened during glue up or if something got underneath the clamps or whatever it was, but either way, here's how we're going to deal with it. Don't know if everybody knows this trick, so I figure I'll show it and see how it works. But so I use a clean white towel, wet it, find the spot, kind of wet around it a little bit, lay it down, and then take a steaming hot iron and basically steam it out of the wood. And usually after once or twice or a couple times of doing this, it lifts the grain enough that you can basically not find it anymore. I was able to get this done pretty easily on this board in only a matter of minutes, and most of them came right out. So the reason this kind of works, and it really only works if you're working without a finish on the product. So if the wood has been finished, this method is not going to work. It only works if it's bare wood. What it does is it rehydrates the dented area and lifts it, and that allows you to kind of resand it down after it kind of pops the surrounding grain and the grain that is dented to begin with. So doing all this does take time, but it is able to work, and it gets the job done and gets it repaired so you can finish it. And I figured while I'm at it, might as well go ahead and do a quick grain pop on the whole unit and kind of clean it all off, make it look good, and see what that grain's going to look like once it gets some finish on it down the road. And I did come back once this was dried and just hit the whole surface again with 180 to get rid of all the raised grain and to make it totally smooth. And just like that, we're ready to flip her over and start sanding the other side. So I do have some methods for how I sand my countertops and stuff like that. And usually I try to just knock off all the high spots real quick, get it to where all the glue squeeze out is sanded down, kind of just run over the whole entire unit. And before I start progressing through my grits. Here I am using 120 on the backside. That's a burnt out sheet from the other side, but remember to switch your sandpaper as soon as you have to start working harder to make it work for you. So some of this glue squeeze out was being a little stubborn, so I went ahead and got the carbide scraper and just scraped off the high spots again with it, and takes a little less sanding that way and uses a little more elbow grease, but same process in the end. You can sit there sanding or you can scrape it. So after all that kind of rough work is done with 120, I start stepping through and doing the whole piece. It pretty much was dead flat at this point, and I'm going to switch up to 180 here and start sanding through with that. So my standard protocol for sanding is using a framing pencil, your standard carpenter's pencil, something with a kind of softer lead so you don't leave marks on the wood when you go ahead and do your squiggles, and then coming back and sanding it back and forth until those lines are gone. Usually we'll do one against the grain and then one with the grain just to get the finish that I'm looking for. This method has been pretty good for me, and since getting the 6-inch orbital that I'm using here, it has really sped up my work in doing these countertops for my built-ins. And here we go with pass number 2, and this is the one that I said I'd try to go with the grain, so I'll go back and forth in sections or on the whole board depending on the project. This being not so long, it's not so bad to go back and forth across the boards, but right about here is where I think I started to realize what the heck's going on with my sander. Festool vacuum, when it gets full, will shut itself off when it can't breathe anymore. Logical concept, right? But here I am with my headphones on, not being able to hear that it stopped working, and as you can see, all the sawdust flying. I do have my shop air filtration system on in the ceiling, which is why I try to mute most of these videos, because I almost always have that on when I'm working. And here I just said to hell with it, we're going to get this done, and I'll come back and finish with the vacuum here in a minute and fiddle with it and clean it out. But all in all, made it through it, did its job, and got this part of the project completed, so it's ready for finish. And don't forget, at the end of your project, when your vac's not working, to always kick the vacuum. It seems to help. I'm joking. Please don't kick your vacuum. And here's the top after I sanded the edges and went ahead and cut it to length and get it all sized up and ready to go. This is after I put the first coat of polyurethane on it. Did use an oil-based poly since this is walnut, and I think it looks pretty good. And here's after the second coat. It's looking pretty good and super smooth. I think should last plenty of years for the customer. The walnut itself actually looks like it has a little bit of curl here and there too. Kind of see it off on the left there. Here's from another angle. And after the third coat of polyurethane. And that's kind of how I do my countertops. Here it is installed at the customer's home. Looks great, the customer's happy, and will last for many years to come. Thank you again for making it so far in this. I really do appreciate it. Have a good one.